Hello, everyone. Before I move on to real estate matters, I want to comment about my video of last week that talked about my health scare. A lot of people reached out. I very much appreciate it. I just want you to know that I'm almost better than new now. I don't see any continuing problems with what I went through. I really appreciate people reaching out again. Business was fine, and I was able to manage my business. And in fact, this year is my second best year ever, and it was made possible by the outstanding team that I have, especially Noah Thompson, who's been on the team now for a little over the year, and he kind of carried the ball during January, certainly so. But thank you for reaching out. Let's talk about what I feel is the most important form in real estate, and that's the agency relationships in real estate transactions form. Now, the State Commerce Department tells us as realtors that on our first substantive meeting, we are to review this form with any potential client or actual client. Sometimes when I go into competitive listing situations, I will ask that potential client, did these other realtors review this form with you? I can tell you about half the time they didn't. And what this tells me, I gently say to the potential client, you probably don't want to give that realtor any further consideration for serving you because they've already proven that they can't follow what the real estate rule is. This is a commandment from the Board of Realtors, Minnesota Association of Realtors. I'm on the Professional Standards Committee of the Board of Realtors, and they're very clear about how important this form is. Let's scroll down to the second page, which actually outlines our fiduciary duty. Realtors in the state of Minnesota have fiduciary duty to their clients. That means that we need to follow these 6 watchwords, and I can tell you I follow them to the letter. So the first one is loyalty. I can only act in your best interests, and I would never put my interests over yours. What you're attempting to do when you buy and sell real estate is very important to you. My needs and what I think is good for me should not enter in, and it never does enter in to any kind of equation. I have to act in your best interest. The second word is obedience. Obedience really, in my mind, has to do with counter offer situations and offer situations. We cannot, as realtors, go off in a corner with another realtor like you might see in some TV show, negotiate on your behalf, and then come back to you and tell you what the result is. I always have to follow your lawful instructions. So when I get an offer on a listing or make an offer for you on a property and we get a reply, I really don't have any reaction other than to say to the other realtor, thank you for your response. Let me talk to my client and then we'll get back to you. I am always under your purview. We, of course, talk together as a team about what the right strategies are and the considerations are. But at the end of that conversation, you'll see that I'm very clear about what you want me to represent for you. The third one is disclosure. Disclosure, there's a number of protections in Minnesota for buyers. And I would call us a fairly buyer-biased state. Compared to Wisconsin, which is more of an even state as far as giving the seller and the buyer kind of equal footing. In disclosure, we have an obligation as realtors to let you know about anything that we're concerned about. This has to do on the listing side with me urging you to make sure that you make a full and truthful disclosure. Now, I'm blessed with clients that understand that through their own intellectual capacity and their own ethical nature. I get very few situations where I have resistance to that. I also, as a realtor, I'm obligated to let the public know of anything that I'm concerned about. And that gets delivered really through the disclosure process that the seller fills out. On the buy side, when I represent buyers, I have an obligation to let my buyer know as we're touring properties what I see as concerns. I'm not going to stand in front of the broken window and say, look at the bird over there. I'm going to turn around and say, hey, there's a broken window here. We need to take that into account as we consider this home. So Those are the two ways disclosure plays into our obligations as realtors to you. The fourth watchword is confidentiality. And this is really a blanket situation. I just want you to know that I don't talk about my clients to people. It's not appropriate. I feel my clients put me in their hands. And that's a situation where a lot of care and trust is required, and that I'm not there to judge. I'm not there to communicate tales about what people said or did. I'm there to act as a true friend, be supportive, and keep any sensitive confidences that might exist, such as how you are in a real estate transaction, how you act on a daily basis, if you're up or down or nervous or excited, any of that stuff. Also, of course, has to do with finances. Don't repeat that stuff. It stays with me. Very much so. When you become convinced of that, what I get from you is that I get your authentic self, and that helps me serve you better. The three things that I definitely can't reveal and never do for either a buyer and seller is price, terms, and motivation. I don't talk to other realtors about what you might pay for that house, why you want that house, why you're selling, anything like that. I can tell you that realtors are sloppy with this, a lot of them. What do I do with that information is they communicate sensitive information about price, terms, and motivation of their client. I do what I'm supposed to do, and that is report to you, my client. And that gives us an advantage in real estate. If they're going to over communicate and share these details, then I feel you as a client have an obligation to know that. But you can be assured that I'm not that realtor. I don't talk out of school. I listen a lot more to realtors than I talk to them, although I try to be nice. The fifth watchword here is reasonable care. Simply stated, we have to act in a reasonable way and do everything that's reasonably expected of a realtor. And then the last one is accounting. Again, the State Commerce Department is very clear on this. They say, realtor, you're the expert. You're supposed to understand the contracts. So that means that you know more than your client. You better know more than your client about these. So what that does is it puts us in a position to make sure that you know what you're agreeing to make sure that you know what you're signing and all the implications of what you're agreeing to. So while I don't go through contracts point by point with you, I can promise you that when we draft and sign buyer representation contracts, listing contracts, or anything having to do with an offer or counter offer, I'll make sure that you know what you're agreeing to, and we'll review the most pertinent points and certainly any that have to do with the financial nature. Anyway, I can tell you that I'm very glad that long before I became a realtor, realtors agreed to have fiduciary duty to their clients. We have a legal and by extension moral obligation to put your interests over our own. And I can tell you that I do that every day. This is all about you. It's not about me. This is big stuff for your life, and I treat it as such. So thank you for listening. I can promise you we follow these rules to the letter. Thank you for listening about my maybe long-winded explanation about this form, but it's important.